South Africa's national state of disaster when it comes to the power utility Eskom is definitely at the top of the agenda of this cabinet Lekgotla chaired by President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is this morning and this week through this cabinet Lekgotla will not be alongside the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa due to the political uncertainty over his future, whether he's still on as Deputy President of the Republic or he has effectively resigned. We also do know that he does have a family grievance this week and will not be able to attend this cabinet Lekgotla should he have not yet resigned. But the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, and the Eskom Utility Board will be at the center of this cabinet Lekgotla, where cabinet will also be seeking legal advice and professional experts when it comes to the issue of dealing with the power crisis within the country. We do know that last week and over the weekend, the ANC's NEC Lekgotla took place, where the NEC overwhelmingly pushed for the country to have a state of disaster when it comes to the power crisis within the nation and how that will be anchored and mirrored around the COVID-19 pandemic, where there was a command team of experts advising government on what to do, and emergency procurement processes were then put in place to procure PPEs, which government now wants to use that similar model when it comes to the procurement of services and of equipment in fixing Eskom's old breaking down coal fleet and also bringing on new streams of energy generation into the South African grid on an emergency basis through this command team that will be advising government on emergency steps that need to be taken, but also the issues of fast-tracking government's response to this and ensuring that they move the power utility from Department of Public Enterprises and to the Ministry of Energy, which is currently held by Minister Gwede Mantashe. We also do know that in the next few weeks, few days, the President will be reshuffling his cabinet, and that will tell the direction that the power utility will be responding and will be the responsibility of which minister who will be tasked with making sure that South Africa is able to eradicate the power crisis within the next year to 2 years.
You talk a little bit about the clarification that's expected to come out of this cabinet Lekgotla about what's happening with the position of a deputy president. I wonder if this also means that we're getting closer and closer to hearing what the plans are in terms of dealing with or bringing about a cabinet reshuffle of some sort.
The cabinet Lekgotla will not be discussing issues of deployment or who becomes minister, who becomes deputy president. Cabinet Lekgotla is essentially looking at government's responsive policy framework and responsive action to the energy crisis that the country is facing, to the increasing inflation and to increasing interest rates within the country that has just been announced by the Reserve Bank with the increase of 25 basis points by the Reserve Bank through the repo rate by the governor Lesitsha and the MPC, which speaks about high cost of living escalating in South Africa. Your bond repayments are going to go high, your car repayments, and the cost of borrowing is essentially going up, which will affect the cost of living of ordinary South Africans, whom are essentially government now has to come up with a plan to try and cushion the middle class, the lower middle class, and the poor, whom are affected by this high cost of living and also the escalating fuel prices that we are seeing. There are various policy proposals to have South Africa buy its own oil refinery out in KwaZulu-Natal in Richards Bay through SAPREF in order to buy it from SAPREF in order to be South Africa's oil refinery to mitigate the high cost of fuel and gas within the country. That has not yielded any positive fruits at this point in time through the Central Energy Fund, which was going to be used by the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy through Gwede Mantashe, but also the issue of coal power ships, emergency electricity that needs to be brought into the grid. You've heard the President announcing last week that South Africa will be buying excess electricity from neighboring countries to bring it on on stream, to bring it onto the South African grid in order to make sure that South Africa have that energy security, which is also affecting productivity within the highly industrialized areas of South Africa, affecting the mining sector, affecting the agricultural sector out in the Northwest Province, and also in provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, which largely rely on electricity, and particularly the poultry industry of this country, which relies on electricity in order to be able to produce those chickens to be flooded into the South African market, also into the international market. So load shedding not only affects the daily lives of ordinary South Africans, but also affects the day-to-day business of the South Africa's economic sector, which is being ravaged by this issue of load shedding, which is at the center of this Cabinet Lekgotla and the announcements and the State of the Nation address, which will be delivered by President Cyril Ramaphosa on the 9th of February in Cape Town. I almost said their parliament, but forgot that parliament had burnt down.
Very difficult thing to forget, and certainly a concerning one. Just quickly before I wrap up, any prominent faces that you're starting to see, arriving, and I think prominent leaders that you're really hoping to hear from.
Most ministers and deputy ministers are inside this Cabinet Lekgotla. You've got the Minister of Police, the Deputy Minister of Police, Lekgotla, whom are effectively responding to the escalating crime stats within the country. South Africa has literally become a gangster state where criminals are running amok, shooting people left, right and center. You just recently had that shooting incident out in Gqeberha, formerly known as Port Elizabeth. You also had the shooting incident in the KwaMashu hostel in KwaZulu-Natal yesterday afternoon at about 4:30, which essentially speaks about criminality and South Africa's gun laws that need to be strengthened. You've got a lot of unregistered firearms in the streets of criminals, thugs and gangsters within the streets of South Africa, whom are effectively running various townships, running various towns, running various certain urban areas in CBDs, which is an issue that the Minister of Police, Lekgotla, the Deputy Minister of Police, Cyril Ramaphosa, and also the Police Commissioner Fani Masomula, they've got to deal with the issue of criminality within the country. Then you've got the Minister of Social Development, Lindiwe Zulu, who has to deal with social security within the country, the issue of questioning the poor, that rollout of the 350 rands to poor South Africans who are unemployed. You also have the Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, who is at this point in time dealing with the energy crisis within South Africa. You've also got the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Gwede Mantashe, who has been further emboldened by the ANC's NEC Lekgotla, who said that the ANC and the government needs to be wary on the personal attacks against the Minister of Energy, who is perceived to be a fossil dinosaur within the country, who is protecting South Africa's baseload of coal, saying that you can't just push a just transition and bring in renewable energy on stream by just abruptly cutting off coal energy within the country, that you need to preserve it, but there needs to be a just transition. The debate in the Minister of Mantashe, and in the words of the governing party through its Secretary General Fikile Mbalula and through the President of the ANC, subsequently the President of the country, saying the question is, how just is this just transition?
Right.
And you've got to make sure that when you push for a just transition, you do not leave coal mining towns in the manner that you're seeing in the gold mining towns in Gauteng, which have become a shadow of themselves, are in essence now ghost towns.